I think a doctor in this surgical unit is biting patients. 10 hours post-surgery, and I'm static. Lying upright in a hospital bed, my eyes are unfocused. I wonder how I can think my way out of this, but that's the irony, isn't it? A brain tumor. Corruption in the very place where logic and reason reside. A nurse appeared, smiling. Morphine? Sure. I opened my mouth like a baby bird, and she fed me. Then she fluttered around the room, attending to other patients. One protested, as he had done all week. He was old, overweight, and slumped, with a dark scar caterpillaring its way from his temple, around to the back of his ear. Not having that. Don't know what's in it. I just want to go home. Do you hear me? HOME. You're trying to poison me, you pack of liars. I know you are. Don't be like that, John. We need that infection to clear up before we can discharge you. Now, can I get you a cuppa? There was no reply, and the nurse left him sulking. She drifted over to the gaunt man opposite me, who was too weak to raise his voice above a whisper. Around his neck, like a collar, was a ring of lacerations. This is a highly specialized unit which doesn't solely cover brain issues, so patients with abnormalities of the spine or neck are also cared for here. I presume this guy fell into one of these latter categories, but I'd not had the energy to talk to him. The nurse listened courteously to his repeated protests. The same shapes formed on his cracked lips over and over. Biting me, biting me, biting, biting. He seemed to say, in the slow, agonal way of someone who isn't long for this world. Okay, my love. Okay, I've heard you. What do you think has bitten you? Now his mouth repeated a different shape I couldn't quite decipher. Liars or lice, maybe? The nurse looked at him with pity and tilted his head forward. There's nothing in here that could have bitten you, Frank. Those marks are from numbing injections, as the doctor has explained multiple times. That scar down your neck is one heck of a thing, so just go easy on yourself now. You're bound to be getting a tad muddled up. She rested his head back on the pillow, patted his shoulder once, and left the ward. Frank looked blankly at the ceiling, moisture gathering at the corner of his eyes. I reached up to touch the line of my own scar, which carved a deep ridge, high and central on my skull. You can barely see it, Fran had said, holding my hand while a tear rolled down her cheek. I tried to own it, joking, but in the companionable solitude of the ward, under the flickering strip lights, amongst the lunatic beeping of medical machines, no, there's nowhere to hide. This place is a prison where the chief crime is the betrayal of inmates by their own bodies. The smell of bleach used to clean my vomit from the floor still lingered. Thankfully, the morphine was beginning to take the edge off my senses. I settled back further into the pillow. More powerful than the nurses are the doctors. How mysterious they are. I can discern no pattern in them whatsoever. They turn up at my bedside randomly, looming and omnipotent, well-dressed or disheveled, sympathetic or curt, rushed or relaxed. Deep down, I'm grateful for their attention, but nevertheless, I fear them. I clicked the lock button on my phone. A photo of Fran and I posing in front of an Italian castle appeared. She was beautiful, inside and out. I looked good too, tanned, lean. I was no longer that person, and yet I was poison. John muttered from the next bed. I lolled my head to the side and saw him curled up, facing away, and rolled my head back again. My left arm and leg don't work anymore. I'd even tried to get Fran laughing about that. But things are really fucked, aren't they? How do you even begin to comprehend something like this? Home! Discharge me, John growled. They won't. They told you why. I said. I closed my eyes and images from a terrible semi-consciousness returned. The operating table. Seizure. Convulsion. Breathe. 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 Masked faces above me, like approaching meteors in an apocalyptic night sky. I saw my pulse quicken on the heartbeat monitor as the flashback played out. No escape. No way to reverse things. A flashing orange light drew me back to the present. It was above Frank's bed. Now a blaring siren started, and a flurry of nurses rushed over. They attached wires and pads and messed around with bags of blood and plasma. An attendant drew the U-shaped curtain around my bed. All I could see were the black nylon shoes of nurses pacing. Raised voices demanded answers to questions in as professional a manner as could be hoped for in a life and death situation. Through the scurrying nurses strode someone wearing scuffed, brown, pointed shoes. Their stride was deliberate and slow. The newcomer stopped at the end of Frank's bed for a moment, then walked back out of the ward. Gone as quickly as they'd appeared. A team of nurses followed them, flanking the wheels of Frank's bed as they pushed. The curtains were pulled back to reveal that 3 patients had become 2. Only John and I now remained. My dreams took me to the beach with Fran. She sat in the lee of a dune, laughing as I ran towards the sea with a surfboard under my arm. "Watch! Keep watching! I'll know if you look away!" I shouted. The water was chilly, but I knew better than to prolong the discomfort. I dunked myself backwards under the waves, bounced to my feet, and prowled the waters chest aboard. I saw an approaching swell and paddled to meet it. Both arms and legs, fully functional, foamed the water as I tried to get the timing right. I popped up and almost fell. The wave began to curl over me, so I crouched lower and picked up momentum. Fran leapt to her feet, cheering me on, always speeding toward the light. I cast a glance over my shoulder at the maw of the collapsing wave. It was catching up, and it was hungry. "Keep watching, Fran!" I yelled, my voice echoing off the watery walls. A curious glow appeared beneath my board, and I realized something was changing. More specifically, the water was changing. Purple tendrils reached out, ever more purple, then red. "Blood! It's blood!" I muttered. My knees knocked together, and my stomach lurched. Fran stood motionless on the shoreline, clutching her sun hat beneath her chin. She wasn't clapping anymore. The wave darkened to the color of Merlot, utterly opaque, and I fell from my board. The current buffeted my body, and I feared to open my eyes. I had to, though, to orientate myself. Lungs beginning to protest, I scoured the darkness for the surface, but all I could see were 2 lighter spots in the red. Dual glowing pink patches above. I kicked viciously towards them, while black circles flashed in my peripheral vision. The pink patches grew and grew until I saw them more clearly. On the verge of unconsciousness, I burst through the surface of the blood ocean. Eyes. Not patches of pink, but bloodshot eyes. I looked into them now, 6 inches away. They belonged to a pale man wearing a white shirt. His hair was black and oily, styled to frame a narrow, serious face. A badge on his chest read, Dr. Anselmo Elias. "What happened?" "We're Dash," I said. The man cleared his throat, wiped away a smear of something red at the corner of his mouth, and backed away. "I'm just doing your observations. You were sleeping." His voice was soft, but not gentle by any means. He consulted his clipboard. "Any pain?" he asked. I touched the fleshy part of my neck, due south of my right ear. Glistening on my fingertips were splotches of fresh blood. "My neck." "Pardon? Who are you?" I asked. "Your doctor. Your surgeon, to be exact. Dr. Elias." Given that question, I assume you don't remember the operation. "No, everything was so hazy." "Good. That means the anesthetist did their job correctly because you were quite engaged and cooperative during the procedure. Of that, I can assure you." "Was I?" The man, still ticking boxes on his clipboard, chuckled. His laugh sounded like the rattle of a spider-bitten insect caught in a web. He ran his tongue over both sets of teeth. "Oh yes," he said. I prodded my neck again and found the flesh swelling into a pronounced bump. "My neck hurts. I think I've been bitten." The doctor's eyes flicked up at me. "Your neck wasn't involved in the procedure, and I can say with confidence that this is a sterile environment. No monsters in here but me. Regardless, I can have the nurse bring you additional painkillers. Good night." He ghosted out of the gloomy ward, silhouette tall and imposing. Unless an optical illusion fooled me, I could see no shadow cast from his heels by the lights beyond. On those freakishly large feet were a pair of scuffed brown shoes. His stride was deliberate and slow. This was who I'd seen before, leading the corpse of poor old Frank away. Dr. Elias. I thought back to Frank's complaint about being bitten. The nurse asked what had been biting him, and Frank had not said lice or liars. He'd said Elias. What had truly infested Frank's neck? Bites from an animal? From Dr. Elias? Or needle punctures? I don't believe in vampires, but I'm fairly confident that there's a doctor who is biting patients in this hospital. I don't want to end up like Frank, but my left leg is useless, so I can't leave. Should I tell Fran? Or am I overreacting? John is groaning again. Poison and lies. Lies.